everybody.
Okay. Okay, it's 7 o'clock and I'd like to call the city council meeting to order here on July 14th. But first we'll have the pledge of allegiance to the flag. And I think you can see this here. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America. And to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, liberty, justice for all. Thank you. Have roll call, well, a moment of silence, and we had a pastor coming, but I don't think he's on yet, is he?
Nope.
Okay. Join me in a moment of silence, if you will, please. Okay, moving on to roll call, council members.
Baldinger,
Here.
Mr. Bodkins,
Here.
Ms. Earlston, Dr. Fellner,
Here.
Mr. Ivy,
Here.
Mr. Richard,
Here.
Mr. Triplett.
Here.
Okay, roll call, elected officials and safety service director.
Mayor O'Leary,
Here.
Auditor Trish,
Here.
Director Vlad Palmer,
Here.
Treasurer Sparks,
Here.
Safety Service Director Ward.
Here.
Okay, next is the approval of the June 23rd regular council meeting. So I'll have to read it. Any
Mr. President, you probably should excuse.
Yes.
We probably should, yes. Okay, yeah, did you want to make that motion?
Yes, I will make that motion.
Okay, Mr. Richard made the motion, excuse Mrs.
Okay.
Then seconded by Mr. Baldinger. All in favor, say aye.
Aye. Aye. Aye.
Okay, she's excused for the evening. Now, approval of the June 23rd regular council meeting. Any discussions, additions, or corrections?
No.
Yeah.
Motion to approve June 23rd, 2020 regular council meeting minutes.
Okay, you've heard the motion to approve the minutes by Mr. Baldinger. Do I have a second? Mr. Ivy seconded. If there's no additions or corrections, roll call.
No, it's all in favor.
They're all in favor? Okay.
Aye. Aye.
Okay. I think we got them all. Okay. Additions to the agenda, we have to approve all of, or add them all to the agenda. The first three of them were discussed at the committee meeting, but there was no ordinances presented. So we need to add each one of them. So need a motion here to add ordinance 2020-45.
I'll make that motion to add ordinance 2020-45 to the tonight's agenda.
Dr. Fellner made the motion, seconded by
Aye.
Mr. Ivy, seconded it. Roll call.
Mr. Baldinger,
Yes.
Mr. Bodkins,
Yeah.
Dr. Fellner,
Yes.
Mr. Ivy. Just
Yes.
wait. Okay. Mr. Richard,
Yes,
Mr. Triplett.
Yes.
The ordinance 2020-45 is passed, added to the agenda by a 6-0 vote. Next is ordinance 2020-46. Have a motion,
I'll make a motion.
and that was by who?
Triplett.
Mark. Okay, second.
Ken Bodkin.
Okay, seconded. Roll call.
Baldinger,
Yes.
Mr. Bodkins,
Yes.
Dr. Fellner,
Yes.
Mr. Ivy,
Yes.
Mr. Richard. Mr. Richard? Okay, Mr. Triplett.
Yes,
Okay. That ordinance added to the agenda by 6-0 vote. Next is 2020-47. I hear a motion.
2020-47.
Okay, motion by Mr. Richards, seconded by
Ivy.
Mr. Ivy, second. Roll call.
Mr. Baldinger,
Yes.
Mr. Botkins,
Yes.
Dr. Fellner,
Yes.
Mr. Ivy,
Yes.
Mr. Richard,
Yes.
Mr. Triplett.
Yes.
It is added to the agenda also by 6-0 vote. Next one's 2020-48.
I'd like to make a motion to add ordinance number 2020-48.
Motion to add that on by Mr. Baldinger, seconded by,
Second.
who was it?
Triplett,
Mr. Triplett. I missed him up in the corner here. Okay, roll call.
Mr. Baldinger,
Yes.
Mr. Botkins,
Yes.
Dr. Fellner,
Yes.
Mr. Ivy,
Yes.
Mr. Richard.
Yes.
Mr. Triplett.
Yes.
Okay, ordinance 2020-48 added by 6-0 vote. Last one is ordinance 2020-49. Do I have a motion to add that?
I'll
Mr.
make-
Okay, who made the motion?
Mr.
I'll
Richard.
Did Mike make it?
Yeah.
I made the motion to add 2020-49.
Okay, Mr. Richard made the motion, seconded by
Like Baldinger?
Mr. Baldinger. Roll call.
Mr. Baldinger,
Yes.
Mr. Botkins,
Yes.
Dr. Fellner,
Yes.
Mr. Ivy,
Yes.
Mr. Richard,
Yes.
Mr. Triplett.
Yes.
Okay, ordinance 2020-49 has been added to the agenda by a 6-0 vote. Now we need a motion to approve the agenda as amended.
I'll make a motion to approve the amended agenda. Fellner?
Dr. Fellner made the motion.
I will second Ivy.
Mr. Ivy seconded. All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed likewise. The agenda has been amended by a unanimous vote. Okay, moving on. Excuse me. Somebody say
Yeah,
something?
excuse me for interjecting or interrupting. I certainly understand. I had a question and things were added to the agenda there. I didn't want to interrupt that. Indeed, it is your meeting, but the last two items that came up today or before, I understand those, but if I'm not mistaken, Mr. Richard, didn't those other ordinances come through your committee? So I'm confused as to why we're adding them to the agenda.
Well, what happened was, though, if you remember correctly, the president mentioned it earlier, was while we did have a consensus for those three, we didn't actually have the legislation available at the time. So between that, this point is the three ordinances that you see before you. So that's the reason why we had to do it this way.
Okay, I'm not sure I'm buying what
Shoot.
Thomas is telling, but let's get on with the public hearing.
I forgot an ordinance that we do have to add.
It was there, it was on the agenda. We
I know,
voted.
I forgot Nikki's ordinance. I missed it on the agenda.
Yeah, well, okay.
I just now remember.
I understand what you're saying, Mike, but that's like it was voted through. I don't know why there wasn't legislation. There often is not legislation at the committee meeting that's drawn up between the committee meeting and the council meeting. So why that stuff is voted on,
Law Director Palmer? Oh, Law Director Palmer?
Yeah, our standard sort of way we've done this for the last 6.5 years since I've been here is that if something gets discussed in a committee level, and in this, at least I'm not speaking to the first one, second and the third one, B and C, they were discussed. There was give and take. There was a final motion in terms of what the consensus was. But whenever that happens, we always have it voted on. That's the way we've done it.
Hey, Thomas, I just realized I made a boo-boo. We were supposed to do Nikki's ordinance on here and I missed it.
Yeah, the airport. So like the only thing
Yes.
important on the whole darn agenda, but that's okay. Let's move. I didn't mean to.
Well, I know, but we have to approve that. So how do I do that?
I don't understand which, are you talking about A?
No, I missed putting it on the agenda. The air-
50, right? Be number 50.
Yeah, the airport one.
You have already approved the agenda.
Can we amend it still?
No, after you've approved the agenda, it's been adopted.
Well, what do we do? That grant is due on the 15th.
Isn't that what A is?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I thought I missed it. I'm sorry. I'm losing my
It
brain.
is A, 45.
All right,
Okay.
But it
I've missed look past it. I'm sorry.
we're good.
falls into the same category as the other ones.
Yeah, okay. I got it. I did it. Okay.
Meeting is Mr.
some
Richards.
reason.
So anyways, I've made my point. I'm not
Okay.
sure. Like Mike, I said to Mike before, I'm not sure I'm buying what Thomas is selling, but let's move on.
We said it during the committee meeting that would have to happen though.
Discussed during the committee meeting that this is exactly what the course would be.
Yeah.
I've done this routinely for 6.5 years. It's no surprise.
Okay, moving on then, we have a public hearing and Julie, I'd like to open the public hearing and Julie, would you?
Okay. All right. The public hearing is for the rezoning of outlots 5 and 6, the East Side Fire Station. They're more particularly described in the ordinance here. And it is for parcel numbers 1900502228-000 and 19-0050229. And those are supposed to be being rezoned. Well, that's what this is for, being rezoned from R1 historical family residential to general commercial GC. And I don't have anybody, I'm up here in the room and I've got the door unlocked. I do not have any public. Tasha said someone may be wanting to come. They didn't say for sure, but I do not see anyone.
How do
I don't know if you see anybody down there, Matt, at all.
You have to have a paper signed by everybody. How are you gonna do that, Julie?
This record will be of it. I will, this video will be part of the record, so it shows who's all here. So if I had public here, I would have them sign. They're not here to add to the record, or I would have them on camera.
Julie?
Yes,
For the record, where are you?
I am upstairs in council chambers.
Okay, I just want to make sure you have that
Okay.
on.
Yeah, that's a good idea. Yeah, I'm in council chambers because that's where we said the public hearing would be, in the letters to the individuals. So that's why I'm up here.
Okay, questions on this? Concerns? Does everybody know what this is? But she read it, but any questions on it?
Just
Yes.
to summarize for Facebook, there was at one time a party that was interested in purchasing the old East Side Fire Station for commercial use. And this is to honor a request to change that. It abuts general commercial, so it's not a rezoning in an island type of situation. But we're going to change it to general commercial so that if that party is still interested in purchasing the fire station and converting it into a business, he may do so. So this is the first step. And that's just summarized for those people on Facebook.
At the committee meeting, I know one of the council members brought up, was concerned about spot zoning. Has that been cleared up? Everything's cleared up on that?
Yes.
Carl, that was me, Carl, and
Yeah, that's right. I wasn't gonna mention your name, but that's, okay.
Mr. Palmer was gonna look into it. I also looked at the zoning map since that meeting, and clearly that it does connect and we're fine.
Yes.
I think at the meeting too, it was discussed that the mayor made a statement that it would increase the potential value of the property in the sale. Mayor, you want to comment on that? Mayor Thomas, do you want to comment on anything?
I'm not part of that process, so I don't know, but I think common sense tells you it would be worth more commercially.
Yes. Mhm. Any other discussion on this?
This is Ken Bodkins. I've had two people call me about that property, and I think if it is rezoned to commercial, that would be very good for the neighborhood. Good for town. Someone will buy it.
Any other comments? Anybody objects to this? If not, we'll move on. I'll close this public hearing and we'll move on to legislation. First is the airport grant, ordinance 2020-45.
Yeah, I thought I'd missed it for some reason. Whew. Ordinance number 2020-45, entitled ordinance authorizing the Civil Service Director to submit an application for grant funds under the Ohio Airport Grant Program and declaring an emergency.
Okay, discussion on this ordinance?
I was wondering if Ms. Ward could elaborate.
Sure, this would be our annual airport project. Because of some changes, I don't know, related to COVID, it would usually be the 90% federal, 5% state, 5% local. For the next grant cycle, it will actually be 100% state. So there will be no local money involved at all, no federal money. It'll be a 100% state funded project. It is an advanced weather observation system, so pilots know basically the conditions they're flying into or out of. We can link into the FAA's nationwide system if we choose to do so. Otherwise, it'll be part of the National Weather Service. So more information out there for the safety of the pilots coming in and out. The expected cost of the project at this point, the preliminary estimate's $258,000, 100% state funded.
Other questions?
I also believe there's a deadline.
Correct.
So it's,
Tomorrow.
yes. It was a deadline
rush.
coming up soon.
But no rush at all.
Yeah. Are there any other comments? Because I'm about to make a motion to suspend the rules.
Hold on.
Mr. Richard, I think had something. He's been-
Okay.
Want to add what Ms. Ward mentioned. This is a update for, as she said, a weather system at the airport. The reason why this is very important is because currently the aircraft coming to our airport reference weather from other airports. They do not get a current weather from our airport. So there's a chance that there could be weather differences between those locations. That which improves safety overall. Just to piggyback on what you said, Nikki, there.
Yep, and that's one of the things that's mentioned in the proposal, because as we all know, it could be nice and bright and dry here and storming up, at Mansfield Lawn. So it will give much more pinpointed information.
Other questions before Dr. Fellner makes a motion to
I
suspend the
do
rules?
have one.
Okay, Mr. Ivy,
Now it's Mr. Baldinger.
Mr. Baldinger, okay.
Section 1, we have too many decimal points and zeros for $258,330. Probably gonna need to make a motion to change that.
Yeah.
Were there any other corrections or additions while we're making this motion to amend? If not, do I hear a motion to amend for this correction?
I want to make a motion to correct in section 1 of this ordinance, the numerical numbers, 258,340. I want to drop the last two zeros and decimal points from them and make that correction.
Okay, you heard the motion by Mr. Baldinger. Do you hear a second? Mr.
I'll
Ivy?
second.
Mr. Ivy seconded. Discussion? Not roll call?
Mr. Baldinger,
Yes.
Mr. Ivy,
Yes.
Mr. Richard,
Yes.
Mr. Triplett,
Yes.
Mr. Bodkins,
Yes.
Dr. Fellner.
Yes.
Motion to, the amendment has passed by 6-0 vote. Back to the ordinance. Any other questions, discussions? Dr. Fellner?
Yes, thanks, Gail. I'd like to make a motion to suspend the rules and proceed to the final reading on the amended ordinance 2020-45.
Heard the motion by Dr. Fellner to suspend the rules. Do I hear a second?
Second.
And Mr. Triplett seconded. Roll call?
Dr. Fellner,
Yes.
Mr. Triplett,
Yes.
Mr. Baldinger,
Yes.
Mr. Bodkins,
Yes.
Mr. Ivy,
Yes.
Mr. Richard.
Yes.
Push to suspend the rules passed by 6-0 vote. Now back to the ordinance. Mr. Triplett,
I'd like to make a motion to pass 2020-45.
for the motion by Mr. Triplett, have a second?
I'll
I'll
second.
second.
Mr. Richard seconded. Any discussion? Not roll call?
Mr. Triplett,
Yes.
Mr. Richard,
Yes.
Mr. Baldinger,
Yes.
Mr. Bodkins,
Yes.
Dr. Fellner,
Yes.
Mr. Ivy.
Yes.
Okay, the ordinance passed by 6-0 vote. Moving on to ordinance 2020-46.
I've got a lot of things going on, people on Facebook and, oh, and this is, people can make comments regarding the legislation that we're currently talking about. It doesn't have to be a public hearing. If you want to submit comments, you submit them on the Facebook page and we'll read them if you have comments on the current legislation. We're not, per temporary council rules, we are not taking general comments, just comments on any of the legislation that's currently in front of us. So that was one of the questions that was on there. So I was trying to get that type, so I'll just say it. So 45
46.
or 46, I mean. Ordinance number 2020-46, entitled Ordinance Adopting the Recommendation of the City of Galion Planning Commission and Rezoning parts of outlots 5 and 6, also known as parcels 19-00-50228-00 and 19-00-50229-00 from historical family residential R1C to general commercial GC.
Okay, discussion? Mr. Richard, do you have anything on this?
Yes, this was, well, actually, it's been discussed several times in law and ordinance. Essentially, as was in the public hearing, that this is a rezone of the parcels that are the old East Side Fire Station. And the idea is that, as Mr. Bodkins had indicated, we've had some interest in that property. We no longer use it as a city per se. So this will do is this will change this to a essentially a commercial property, which will make it more advantageous for not only the buyer, but for we will also get a better price because it would be a commercial property for the city.
Thank you. Any other discussion?
President, may I add in a couple of things?
Mayor?
Okay, there was appraisal done of the property in anticipation of seeing its worth or value. And in the appraisal, it was observed that if it were zoned differently, the expectation is that we would get a higher set of bids at the sale. So that really is underlying. That's been, it just adds a little bit more meat to what Mike was talking about. The other thing I wanted to slightly correct is the fact that it's not used. One of the dilemmas, if you will, is that the building is full, and it's full of various pieces of city equipment. So we make this rezoning. It's likely that that will bring up the question of what we do about where we store either extra equipment or vital equipment. And so it's not empty. I didn't want anyone to think that. And we've been used quite a bit, but the notion of it having more value to, as Ken was talking about, there's people have approached them. I think there's likely a handful of bidders, all businesses or people who want to do some sort of commercial activity there. So that a little bit, again, we are using it, but we'll likely, and I think happily, displace that equipment in order to get an expansion of a business or a new business in town. Thank you.
Okay, we do have a question. If this is the time, it's from someone's wondering if the buyer will need to keep the historical aspects of the building.
Well, first of all, they have, Thomas, are you going to say that they have to identify themselves? And
Oh, I can say that. It's Bree.
Say, Tom.
then identify them.
I'm sorry. It's Bree, and she wants the buyer need to keep historical aspects of the building.
For those people not socially media hip, Bree doesn't do a whole lot for us, Mrs. Bell. So who is that?
Bree Craft.
Okay. An address, normally, like the rules probably provide for address, etc. So I don't want to pick on Mrs. Craft. She's on the Board of Health.
Yeah.
I'm not sure what historical aspects. I'd like to hear the law director's comment on what historic aspects of the East Side Fire Station.
This is a common misnomer. Our general R1 zoning classification, which covers most of the city Galion, for whatever reason in 2009, was called historical family residential. This has nothing to do with design review whatsoever. It just happened instead of residential, single family residential, it's just called historical family residential. It's referring to the fact that these are properties that typically have larger lots, bigger setbacks, etc. So it's got nothing whatsoever to do with the historic nature of that building or any building. Simply refers to the fact that it's zoned R1C.
Mm-hmm. And for the record, the address is 523 Grove Avenue, Galion, Ohio.
Okay, other discussion? If not, is there urgency on this to get this passed? Probably is, Mayor, to get it before winter.
But I guess to answer that question, Carl, if council recall that there's a long advertising period that's involved with the city advertising for the sale. So in that sense, it's not an emergency. We've been talking about it for a couple of years, and it's a good idea whose time has come. My only thought is when you match up, what is it, 6 weeks of advertising, Thomas?
5.
So we got 5 weeks of advertising. Any person excited about acquiring the building, I think the sooner that they could move through, take possession. I'd hate to have it transact in November, December. So in that sense, but if because of the historical aspects of the building and the character of the neighborhood, we want to like hold that for public comment, we could probably do that. I'm letting it have a second reading won't change a lot. It's this issue of when it will become available for bids kind of mid or late fall. It's 2 weeks different, probably.
Okay,
The short
there's
answer.
another comment. It's from Bree Craft at 523 Grove Avenue.
Best stuff.
She's asking about if the building's being used, then it's got a use to the city. So if it's being used for storage, then it's being used. So that's what her comment was. And then I also have from Brenda Blyshak Acres. She lives at 887 East Walnut, and she wants to know how this will affect our taxes.
Well,
If I may, I mean, I think that's the law directors, but I'd like to hear his answer to that question first.
I got two of them.
Which question is that, Julie? What's the first one?
The first one was from Bree. She asked if it's being used for storage, then it's being used. So
Well, it's completely irrelevant to a rezoning.
Okay.
What I know what she's referring to. She's referring to the sale of the building. That's
Right.
not what's before council
Okay.
tonight. What's before council tonight is a rezoning,
Okay,
period.
yeah, so we can still retain it and rezone it. And the other one was how does it affect our taxes from Brenda Acres?
It could only, I may answer that. It could only, when sold, it could only add incrementally. The largest new taxes would be, it's a little complicated, but there would be no new revenue to the school as a result of it. But as a commercial building, its addition to the tax base would in an infinitesimal way reduce those property taxes paid to the schools by the commercial class of property. As far as residential property owners, it would have no effect at all. The impact on the city is negligible. We get, I believe, 3 mills of property tax. It's really not significant. And because of House Bill 920, there's an equalization factor. So there would be a net neutral impact for the taxing jurisdiction and a incremental reduction in the cost of or in commercial taxes. So how's that for a wonky answer?
This is Ken Bodkins. I think that we should just hurry up and get this done and so we can get it on the market and get it sold. I don't know what the rest of you think, but no sense in sitting on it any longer.
I'm certain, this is Ivy. I certainly don't object. I'm ready to move forward this evening.
Thank
I agree. I think that regardless, even if we suspend the rules and go to the final reading, it's going to take 30 days. It won't be adopted immediately as per zoning changes. So if there's really an objection, there's a 30-day period there where the public can input. So I'm ready to make a motion to suspend the rules on ordinance 2020-46 and proceed to the final reading.
I'll second that.
A motion by Dr. Fellner and seconded by, who was it? Mr. Ivy?
Bodkins.
Hodgkins.
Mr. Watkins, okay. Roll call.
Dr. Fellner,
Yes.
Mr. Bodkins,
Yes.
Mr. Ivy,
Yes.
Mr. Richard,
yes.
Mr. Triplett,
Yes.
Mr. Baldinger.
Yes.
Okay, motion to suspend the rules passed by 6-0 vote.
Thanks, council.
Okay, now,
I'd like to make a motion to pass ordinance 2020-46.
motion by Mr. Triplett to pass.
Ivy seconds.
Mr. Ivy seconded. Roll call, or not roll call, but discussion. If none, roll call.
Mr. Triplett,
Yes.
Mr. Ivy,
Yes.
Mr. Richard,
Yes.
Mr. Baldinger,
Yes.
Mr. Bodkins,
Yes.
Dr. Fellner.
Yes.
Okay, that also passed by 6-0 vote. Moving on to 2020-47.
Okay. Ordinance number 2020-47 entitled ordinance amending section 1511.05B and 1511.06 of the codified ordinances of the city of Galion related to open burning and declaring an emergency.
Read the ordinance, discussion.
Mr. President,
Mr.
this was brought to, well, my attention initially, and then it came before the committee concerning the open burning. The two parts that are in the current ordinance, the one section which is 1511.05B describes the open burning as offensive, objectionable. It's kind of a vague description. The second part of this is then related to the citations by the fire department. The reason why this was or has come before everyone here tonight is, first of all, in the second part of this, the 1511.6, the fire department currently does not have an enforcement officer per se. In process of discussing this with the fire chief and our police chief, the committee felt that the changes that are listed here would better make this ordinance workable. The first part of that would be to change the 1511.5 to make the determination of objectionable open burning be determined by the fire department itself. Before, now this doesn't preclude citizens calling in to report objectionable burning, but it does give a better feel or a better direction for determining what is the objectionable part. Sorry for my voice, by the way, I'm losing it again. The second part of it, if you notice, is 1511.06 citations. Essentially what the committee felt was to remove the reference of the fire department. Currently, what happens is when the fire department or when a complaint is lodged, the fire department goes out, and if they do find an issue that requires citation, they usually have one of the police officers come out and cite the individual accordingly. This cleans up that part of this ordinance, because before, as you notice, there was a reference to the fire department doing it, and they aren't technically or aren't able to do that. So, and if somebody has a little more on this, by all means, please jump in.
Mr. President, may I jump in for a sec?
Yes.
Thanks.
But
I think largely what this is that the way ordinance reads now, a complaint comes in, police department goes out, they say, yeah, there's open burning. It requires the fire department to come out and make that determination. What we're trying to do, as I understand it, is to try to allow the police officers to have the ability to make that call and enforce that law without requiring a fire personnel to be dispatched as well.
thank you. Questions?
I
This
think
is,
one more thing real quickly is Mike was absolutely right when he said that this is something that the fire chief had really brought up and said, if you want to make this ordinance more enforceable, this is something you could do.
Right.
Because the city of Galion official who knows the ordinance, the police officers right there at the scene more often than not. So
this issue comes up in the years that I've been on council. This is at least the third time this specific issue has come up. And, every time we've tried to tweak the ordinance to make it fair, but enforceable when violations are egregious. You can still have your cooking fire without fear of the police officer citing you. But what happens many times is it's neighbor just not being courteous to fellow neighbors, and the offended one gets mad and starts calling in. And some of them have been pretty legitimate with people that have had respiratory conditions. It's 95 degrees out and no breeze, and somebody wants to. So again, we're trying, not trying to enforce good behavior, but if people would exercise a little bit of good behavior, this wouldn't have to come up every so often. But I will predict in 2 more years, another open burning ordinance will come up that will tweak again. So I feel like it's a good change that, because I've called the fire department myself on, and there's really nothing that they could do other than, hey, this is getting a little bit out of hand. We've received some complaints, and then it's up to the citizen to take them at their word, or be a little bit more courteous. So I would like to get this on the books as quickly as possible and go for a suspension of the rules on ordinance 2020-47 and proceed to the final reading.
That is your motion?
I second that.
Okay, second by Mr. Bodkins. Roll call.
Dr. Fellner,
Yes.
Mr. Bodkins,
Yes.
Mr. Ivy,
Yes.
Mr. Richard,
Yes.
Mr. Triplett,
Yes.
Mr. Baldinger.
Yes.
Motion to suspend the rules passed by 6-0 vote. The discussion on the ordinance.
Just one comment from Ivy. As far as putting the authority more towards the police department, that can escalate those neighborly conflicts, and the first responders are the appropriate ones to be.
Yeah, I don't, Mr. President, I mean, I'll only say that what happens now is the police go out, they say this is in violation of the law, and so they call out the fire department. So that's it escalates the situation. So having one car trying to, what is Dr. Fellner's 100% right. Every couple of years, this comes up. And I've been here 7.5 years too, Thomas. And in this particular case, the last 2 times, the same individual who has raised this issue. Some folks may remember Stan Walters. He was an ornery guy out on Fairview. He's passed, but he had a way of irritating the neighbors, or not irritate, but complaining about people next door. So was a good guy and stuff, but he had a particular, I believe, had respiratory conditions, Dr. Fellner. So there is a recurring pattern here of people calling. But to answer Aaron's question, I think the way it works now is if the police aren't successful, then the fire department's called out, and that seems like an extreme utilization or overutilization of the safety forces. So anyway, thank you.
Any discussion on this?
No, I mean, I'm sorry that's not what I meant. I mean, if there was a domestic situation that was getting out of hand, the police being on scene first, I mean, if the fire is a campfire, or the police can use common sense, and they always have the opportunity to get training from the fire department as well on these issues.
Okay.
I'd like to make a motion to pass ordinance 2020-48. No, excuse me, 47.
Okay, you read the motion by Dr. Fellner. Does it have a second?
I'll second.
Mr. Richard seconded it. Discussion. A roll call.
Dr. Fellner,
Yes.
Mr. Richard,
Yes.
Mr. Triplett,
Yes.
Mr. Baldinger,
Yes.
Mr. Bodkins,
Yes.
Mr. Ivy.
Yes.
Ordinance passed by 6-0 vote. Moving on to 2020-48.
Ordinance number 2020-48, entitled ordinance establishing the coronavirus relief fund number 267 and declaring an emergency.
Okay, discussion. Brian, do you have anything on this? Or
Yes,
you?
real quickly on this. We are receiving the money, or we have received the funds from the county regarding coronavirus to the tune of $212,813.28. Under the law, we have to establish a separate fund for the tracking of that. The tracking will be done not only by the auditors, but by the Office of Budget and Management. So we need to get this done. We are established this as Fund 267. And I'd like to have this passed as an emergency so Eunice can begin the process.
Any other discussion on this ordinance? Then do I have a motion?
I'll make a motion to suspend the rules on ordinance 2020-48 and proceed to the final reading.
Dr. Felder made the motion to suspend the rules. Mr. Richard, you second it? Mr. Richard?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. He seconded. Okay, roll call.
Dr. Fellner,
Yes.
Mr. Richard,
Yes.
Mr. Triplett,
Yes.
Mr. Baldinger,
Yes.
Mr. Bodkins,
Yes.
Mr. Ivy.
Yes.
Motion to suspend the rules passed 6-0. Discussion on the ordinance.
I have a question.
Pardon?
I have a question from Bree Craft of Grove Avenue again. She's wondering, is the funding and how it is spent public record?
Yes.
We can't hear you, Brian.
There we go. Push the wrong button. I'm sorry. Yes, any expenditure by the city is a public record.
Thank you.
I'd like to make a motion to pass ordinance 2020-48.
Mr. Triplett made the motion to pass ordinance. Do we have a
Oh.
second?
Bodkin, second.
Mr. Bodkin seconded it. Discussion? Not roll call?
Mr. Triplett,
Yes.
Mr. Bodkins,
Yes.
Dr. Fellner,
Yes.
Mr. Ivy,
Yes.
Mr. Richard,
Yes.
Mr. Baldinger.
Yes.
Okay, the ordinance passed by 6-0 vote. Last one is 2020-49.
Okay. All right. Ordinance number 2020-49, entitled ordinance amending ordinance number 2019-85, permanent 2020 appropriations by appropriating funds from unappropriated to the coronavirus relief fund and declaring an emergency.
Thank you. Discussion? Brian or Eunice?
I'll take this if that's all right on that. We're
Okay.
setting this up so we have the Can you hear me at this point?
Yes.
Okay. To basically put the funds into two areas. One would be for general government, other contractual services and reimbursements. You can see the number there, and the amount of $160,000. And then there's a $58,828 that we're putting into materials and supplies. These numbers may change as we get into this a little bit more, but these are to begin the expenditure so we can move forward. And again, I would like this passed as an emergency.
So Brian, just to clear up, these are both, all the money in both of the section 2 and section 3 are going into the newly established Fund 267.
Yes, sir. We need to track it from, excuse me, go ahead.
Oh, no, you're on.
I was just going to say, we have to do that because the expenditures have to be tracked from that fund as well. So we're putting all the funds into that to do that. Now, for example, the mayor's referred to getting the reimbursement of the $50,000 that was advanced perhaps to the health department. That would come out of the reimbursement line and we would address it through that. to put it back to the general fund. But we'd have to track it there and show the purpose. Mayor, do you
I'm
have a
gonna-
comment on that?
Sure.
More interested to see what Bree Kraft has to say, but I would comment that, for instance, there would be all of the materials that we have spent for sanitizer, the masks, all of those expenses will be charged back. The money that we are spending with Fairway Waycraft to add extra sanitation to our park facilities, that would be charged against those accounts. So it is, I think there'll be a full accounting of all the uses of those funds. Brian and I have been talking a little bit about how we can transfer the money. That's the wrong verb. I struggle a little bit on the right verb. Put the money that went to the Port Authority for the loan program, get that back into the accounts that were used on a temporary basis. So we're trying to work through how to do that. But the Port Authority meeting today, they were talking about having $94,000 of that original allocation that was sent over. They've not loaned that. So we're going to try to look at seeing if we can get the money that was taken either from the mayor's budget or from the depot budget, get that back to the general fund, if you will, and then move these COVID dollars out to finish any loan program costs. So we're still working through how to expense out this $212,000, but I think largely it's important to note that it's going to go for increased COVID-related sanitation issues. Our goal would be to have it pay for those contact tracers that we funded because we needed the money. And if you'll recall, part of my frustration a few weeks ago is that the money was in Columbus and we needed it in Galion. So we went ahead as a city government and got those dollars up to the health department, got them out to the Port Authority for the loan program. And now we're going to work through the more tedious process of getting the COVID dollars out there to those COVID related expenses. So
Excuse me, go ahead.
over talk it, but that's really what our plan is. And there's $212,000 to spend. We've already spent $240,000. City government has, council has, on COVID related expenses. So that would be the 190 for the loan program and the $50,000 that went up the street to the health department. So we're gonna try to use some of this money on new expenses, things that we hadn't already funded, the Waycraft cleaning contract, the extra not masks so much, but the sanitizers, the sanitizing station down at the park, those sorts of things. Hope that explains without over answering.
Okay. Thank you. Eunice, you had something?
Yeah, I just want to be sure to clarify, since there's already been some questions. As the mayor mentioned, expenditures that we already have had. What I did just to try and come up with ballpark for these appropriations is I pulled everything that we have spent to this point. Not sure, as he was saying, what we're going to do with the Port Authority money and how we're going to cover that. But for these figures, I came up with what has already been spent, but I also want to clarify the funds that we are putting into the reimbursements, the 160,000. Once you guys do the appropriation, we also have an other technical services line, which is 52317. And some of those funds will be moved into the 52317. I don't have the figures here in front of me, but I believe it was like $30,000, just to clarify. So if down the road somebody sees that type of expense, it's not questioned if they look at it.
Okay, thank you.
Good point. And for those members of the finance committee, get ready. You'll see that very issue coming back probably at the next finance committee, how to move those how to expense out of those proper appropriation line items. But the underlying thing, y'all, is that we've come a long ways, and if we pass this appropriation tonight, we'll be able to get those. I think, as Eunice well said, is the very 212,000 seems like a lot until you look at the fact we spent close to $250,000 on COVID-related expenses already. So there'll be, I guarantee there'll be some finance committee discussion on that in a couple of weeks, Gail.
Okay.
Okay. What's your pleasure on this? Anybody else have anything?
If there are no other comments, I'm gonna pitch a perfect game tonight and make a motion to move ordinance 2020-49 to the final reading.
You've heard the motion by Dr. Fellner, so suspend the rules. Second.
I'll second.
Mr. Richard seconded. Roll call.
Dr. Fellner,
Yes.
Mr. Richard,
Yes.
Mr. Triplett,
Yes.
Mr. Baldinger,
Yes.
Mr. Bodkins,
Yes.
Mr. Ivy.
Yes.
Okay, ordinance 2020-48 is also passed by 6-0 vote. Okay, moving on to other business.
Oh, that was just
I
to
like-
suspend the rules.
I'd like to make a motion to pass ordinance
Yeah, okay,
2020-49.
Okay, so Mr. Triplett made the motion to pass the ordinance.
Baldinger.
Seconded by Mr.
Ken
Bodkin. Mr. Bodkins, the discussion. Roll call.
Mr. Richard,
Yes.
Mr. Bodkins,
Yes.
Dr. Fellner,
Yes.
Mr. Ivy,
Yes.
Mr. Triplett,
Yes.
Mr. Baldinger.
Yes.
Okay, that passed by 6-0 vote. Now moving on to other business. Committee meetings, who wants to start? Are we back to the point having all 7 of them?
We didn't have, this month, we didn't have the Parks and Rec. Unless the mayor has something, Tammy is out of town and she won't be here for the police, fire and health on Thursday, unless the other 2 committee members want to have it.
Mayor, do you know of anything?
On that committee, no, I don't believe so, Carl.
Okay, thank you. That takes care of one.
All right, we'll go ahead and cancel that for Thursday, then we will not be having the police, fire and health.
Okay, Gail, do you want to, on the 22nd?
Yeah, finance is going to be meeting on Zoom on July the 22nd at 7 p.m.
Any before the next meeting coming up?
We have
Sorry,
economic
Carl.
development.
Pardon?
Economic development is the 21st.
Yes, I'd like to have a meeting, please.
Okay.
Economic Development, 7 p.m. via Zoom.
Any other before our next council meeting on the 28th? If not, does council have any other business they'd like to bring up before the meeting or discussion? If not, Auditor Trish.
Just a couple things. We're still doing pretty well on the response. It will be a fairly extensive meeting on next Wednesday. We've had a little bit of a setback in our office. April Amons will be out for a little while because of a family issue. So it's just Eunice in the office. So please make sure everything you have to her is in order so we can move forward on that. She's going to be buried. That's all.
That's it? Okay, Treasurer Sparks? Still there?
Yeah, I'm here. I don't have that much. I just, we met with Meter this week and try and get the investments situated. Everything's good on the money wise. and we got some upcoming expenses coming up. So we just wanted to plan for make sure we had the money there. But everything's good. I did get a kick out of the mayor's quote about the Stan Walters. That's a blast from the past, and I agree with what he just said. So I got a kick out of that. So you have a good day.
Really good guy. And Doug, his son, is active in the community. I was in no way ripping on him, but he was somebody who was consistently upset with his neighbors, and it made for a real touchy enforcement issue. And I'm maybe this will help improve that. So that's funny, Rod.
Anything else, Mr. Sparks?
No, I don't have anything.
Okay, thank you. Moving on to Law Director Palmer.
Just the standby thing I bring up all the time about the financial disclosures. I know Julie sent out an email today, but if anyone hasn't filed yet, the deadline tomorrow. So you still have the opportunity to do so. That's it.
Okay, Mayor.
There's a dozen things, and I'll answer some questions if we want to do it that way. The one thing I wanted to add was I'm excited, and that's hard for me at this age to get excited, that John Kleinite has accepted a appointment to the Port Authority Board. We've been limping along on kind of one person down for many months now. And those of us that have served with John, either on school board or council, know a lot about where he's coming from in terms of his dedication to the community. He's really a big Galion guy and extremely positive. So I think he'll be a big addition to that for a number of reasons. So next meeting, there'll be an ordinance come through. I think whether it's added to the agenda or not doesn't matter a lot at this point, but getting him on there to round out the Port Authority is, I believe, a step forward. So plenty of time to discuss it over the next 2 weeks. But
should I put that on the economic development?
Yeah,
on their agenda?
sure. So make sure we have an ordinance so that it comes up without having to be voted on. Okay.
Yep, I will.
We'll make it happen, Mayor.
Okay.
Mayor.
That's mostly it, y'all. Thank you. There was, if you have a question about anything recently, I refuse to field questions on Charles Street, but that's the only I'm trying to have a little bit of fun. We did have a big water line break, and the thumbs up to the service department that got out there. It was at Brant and 598. So we either know about it and were inconvenienced by it, or weren't aware of it. But we jacketed the line. It was on a line that goes out on the east side of 598, one that will probably find a way to reserve later. But anyways, it's back up and running. That's really all I've got, Carl. Thank you.
I had made a July resolution. I wasn't going to ask you about Charles Street.
Yeah, well, thank you. I had to bring your resolution. So
Okay.
no, it's bumping along, and it's a difficult project. Anytime you sewer an unsewered area, one of the reasons it hasn't been added to our sewer system. It's a tough job. So I think we'll feel better about the project and the lift station that serves that part of town once it's done. But it's been, I think it was $125,000 contract. That it's one of the biggest headaches per ratio or per dollar of contract ratio. So it'll be behind us, we hope, in a few weeks.
Anything on the schedule about paving through Galion?
Yeah, I think they sold that. It's a little bit ahead of over the engineer's budget. I believe they're awarding it yet this week. The apparent low bidder is Kokosing. And yeah, I mean, I saw Thomas's reactions, like, these guys have paved a couple miles, so they're highly confident. I feel good about it. There was a decision made to go ahead and burn in, if you will, thermoplast paint the pavement markings. I think we've all seen what happens when that latex paint is sprayed down. I think the couple sections of Harding Way West where we did temporary paving, or you can already see those stop bars, those center lines, those pavement markings or parking delineations are all kind of fading away. So we're going to burn the plastic paint into it'll cost us an increment of 23,000 from out at Evans Drive all the way through town. It seems like it's a pretty good investment in long-term, visible, usable, and accurate pavement markings.
Thank you.
Sure.
What about the bike path?
Anybody else? Dr. Vilner?
Is that officially open, the bike path?
It's about as official as it's going to get. That's a great question. People are using it on a daily basis. I don't have any objection with that. I think a recommendation that came from the seeding contractor to wait until the fall of the year is a good recommendation. I think to rush to put out the seeding, as I think all of us know, this is the wrong time to be seeding anything, and so it's effectively open. We're going to get Lynn McKeever to get the striper out there, get the center line stripe in, and I think as far as finishing it up, it'll probably be in the fall of the year when agronomists and everyone says is the time to plant grass. Since you asked, I'll add two more things quickly. Tomorrow, Josh Dyer from the County Park District is going to come out. We're going to try to introduce him to the park, to the bike trail and the adjacent ground, and get some feedback on his ideas about what we could do to develop those 20 some acres or a little bit more that are adjacent to the bike path, and so we'll see how that goes. The other thing about the path that I think is important is that people are using it. I think it's a good thing. The summer youth folks, I don't want to repeat what I had said yesterday via live stream, but the summer youth folks hauled off a lot of miscellaneous auto parts and glass and whatnot. I was told today by a couple of our full-time staff that they hauled 2 dump trucks worth of stuff out of there. So big thumbs up to that summer youth group that we've made good use of over the last many years. So anyways, that's the bike path.
What's the striping aspect? The path itself?
Center line, a center line.
Okay.
Yeah,
because there's a center line through the driveway.
Yeah.
It's done, but you're talking about a left, right, a lane marker essentially.
Yeah, delineation of the center line.
Okay.
How's that for a fancy? And then the fence, since we're on the topic, the fence is scheduled the week of the 27th. And then if you've been out there snooping around, trespassing, you naughty folks, then you get to the south end. We're going to have a separation between the wastewater treatment plant and the bike path walking trail, and that'll go in the week of the 27th. As far as any kind of council recognition, or not recognition is the wrong word, but a ribbon cutting, that's probably something in early August. But every walker and biker in town's out there snooping around and checking it out. And if you haven't been out, you'll feel really good about what's been accomplished there. And certainly have some glass to clean up at the very north end of the trail, but it'll make you feel good about all these wonderful hours you spend and the calls you get, and sometimes the negative feedback we get. Go out there, it'll make you proud of the Freeze Foundation and the work you've done. So
well, people are excited about it, and I'm getting questions, so I'm going to encourage them to go and trespass.
yeah, it's safe to be open, And it's just cosmetic stuff, aesthetic stuff, Doc, that we've got here. And we're going to continue to work on making sure that the north end, where most folks in town are going to enter it, we've got some work to do there to make sure that it's as safe as we can make it. But,
Thank you.
yep.
Does it have a sign that says no bikes?
I don't know, but somebody told me that.
That's what I keep seeing on Facebook.
I can't read. I'm incapable of that. I never mastered that. I faked my way all the way through 16 years worth of college, so, or have education out of college. I'm just joking. No, I think there may be a sign up there, but it's pretty cool. If you haven't been out there, you're eating yourself. So get out there. Saw a guy with a walker, lived on Hosford Road. He'd driven over, parked his car, and used his walker to go all the way down and back. So that was kind of a nice, if you go out there, you'll see people, and it makes you feel good about the stuff that we do to serve the public. So I encourage it. Thanks.
Anything else to ask the mayor? If not, I don't have anything else, and it's 8:14. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
I'll make that motion.
Mr. Triplett made the motion.
I'll stand in for Mrs. Earlston and second that motion.
Okay, Dr. Feldman seconded. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Meeting hereby adjourned at 8:15.
Good night.
Good night.
All right.